time to go abroad and spend this hour with Yoshi Shimatsu, who has been heroically pushing into areas that few dare to go anymore. There is a noticeable quiet in Japan since the so-called secrecy law was passed by the Abe regime. Secrecy to protect the nuclear power industry, of course. It has already dampened much of the news that used to be coming out of many sources in Japan. With a predictable result, people are afraid. They don't want to go to prison for 5 or 10, 15 years, which the law suggests that they very well may end up doing. There are good developments over here in terms of information, however. We are doing our best, of course, around the clock for you and have been since 3/11 of 11. Yoshi has been with us most all of that time. He has contributed more than any single human being on the planet to the big picture of understanding what's happening at Fukushima Daiichi and how it is impacting the planet. And that's the way we expect to continue right on for as long as there are people listening. We're not going to change. One good news in the media, the mainstream media now, we like to think we have had something to do with holding their feet to the fire. The LA Times is now picking up the story finally, which we reported months ago, that the sardine industry, the sardine populations along the West Coast and in the Gulf of Alaska, well, there aren't any. Boats are coming back without a single sardine in their nets. Zero. And again, sardines are a primary food fish for larger fish and birds in the ocean. The masses, the uncountable numbers of sardines feed enormous numbers of mammals and seabirds and fish, and they are now starving. Boats coming back, no fish, nobody has an answer. Of course, now the Times is beginning to suggest that maybe we ought to take a look at Fukushima. Well, maybe, folks at the LA Times, it's too late, which it is, and the bottom of the Pacific Ocean is littered with dead sardines. They're dying because it's all bioaccumulative. The sardines eat little fish. They probably eat the algae as well and the plankton, which pick this stuff up immediately. 10 or 12 meals of algae and plankton, and you've got that radionuclide multiplied in your body if you're a sardine by 10 or 12-fold. And you're dead. And that's what probably has happened. They all ate, they all consumed, and they all got sick relatively in the same window, and most of them died. We'd like to think that maybe they fled south and went to the southern hemisphere, but I don't believe that that's happened. Yoshi, welcome back. Where are you tonight?
Well, thank you. I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, stopping over from my time in Hong Kong and trying to get back to my coffee farm for the rest of the dry season. And met some, I've been meeting with Japanese friends here, and you know, it's no coincidence that many Japanese are here. Anyone who could speak English seems to have left Japan, you know, and
hundreds of thousands, I'm told. Several 100,000 Japanese have left.
I see everywhere in Bangkok, you see these teams of 5 to 10 guys and girls, you know, usually youngish, with one sort of boss with them. And they're setting up guest houses, new hotels, real estate companies.
So they're bringing in investment capital.
Well, no, basically it's a capital flight. There's capital flight from Japan.
That's what I'm saying. They're bringing in investment capital, yes.
Yeah, to invest in Thailand, because not only because they expect the Japanese economy to tank, but everyone knows the country is radioactive. So I had some dinner with some friends last night, and
they do know now.
You know, their assumption is most of Japan is contaminated, and they're surprised that when I say that maybe there might be some pockets that are less contaminated than others. You know, they just assume it's just generally all over Japan. And people have got to leave, and they're trying to figure out strategies of how to get out. Now, one of the shocking things they told me over dinner, this is really terrible, is that there's zero news about Fukushima in Japan now. That all the news about anything to do with Fukushima, they're getting only from foreign news sources, nothing from Japanese news sources.
Like this one.
Since the passage of the security bill, that in fact news about Fukushima has dried up, and I tested their thesis, and I looked up the TEPCO site, and sure enough, TEPCO hasn't been putting out many press releases. They've said nothing about the the large earthquake that struck near there just recently.
5.4.
Daylight hours when they were when they're supposed to be moving fuel rods, and Reactor 4, not a peep of news about. That's some old news about, water contamination. And also their only news item, I think the last news post was December 27th, and that was about, they're asking the Japanese government for something like $100 billion in bailout money. So that's all they're, posting is, the need for more money to continue their work. That's all. There's no news about what's going on in the plant, about radiation releases, about the situation at the spent fuel pool, the reactor 4, nothing of the sort. It's just dead quiet. So that's why these friends said, it's been just really mysteriously quiet in Japan, and having to look for Fukushima news in, overseas websites and newspapers is quite, quite alarming for them, that the level of secrecy is so great. One would expect
so the law came down like a sledgehammer.
Yes. And basically the media has not got much room to work. Even Tokyo Electric, because it has to ask the government for a bailout, they're not going to release any information, anything,
of course not.
Anything about the true situation on the ground. So it's worse than ever right now. I mean, it was bad after 3/11 when they tried to bamboozle us with all this disinformation and false reports. But like I said, in the past, at least we had something to work with. We could test whether a report was, patently absurd or not. Right now, without any news reportage, any news releases, there's nothing to test, basically. There's nothing to challenge. So that's the situation now. Now, what you were saying about the sardines, yeah, I mean, we've been monitoring the situation. As you know, I've been taking radiation readings on both sides of the Pacific. Long ago predicted a massive kill-off. The kill-off has obviously occurred. I've even reported on the push of sardines when last June, July, when I was on the West Coast, down south, if you recall, San Onofre.
Yeah.
I talked to a fish and wildlife officer who talked about there was going to be a huge. Well, first of all, I talked to local bait shops there who said, yeah, everything's okay with sardines so far. And then the fellows from down south, San Diego area, were telling me there's going to be a big push of warm water coming up as usual in the summer, and sardines will be plentiful, no problem right now. But since then, there's been this enormous this incident of all the sardines congregating in Monterey Bay, and I assume many other bays along the coast, to escape whatever is out there in the Pacific. They're followed by all the sorts of animals, fish and sea mammals that feed on sardines, so I had to follow them in. So now we're hearing about a wipeout at sea, that there's nothing there.
Well, again, if the sardines are gone, and they are gone, you got boats in Alaska, both off California as well, coming back with no catch. There are no sardines. That means the entire food chain, the entire chain of sea life has been crippled, if not terminally destroyed by this. We don't know yet.
Well, absolutely. Sardines are a fundamental part of the base, the foundation for the entire food chain.
You cut out that leg and the whole building will come down. Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably indicative of whatever is affecting the sardines is affected, invertebrate like squid, herring, other.
How can it not?
Type fish.
And every sardine they eat, Yoshi, has already bioaccumulated radionuclides many times over.
Absolutely. And we're seeing very rapid rates of bioaccumulation, at least in the starfish, from seaweed. So we would expect the same from sardines. Yeah. Animals do not, let's say, bone the fish and all that and take the fillets. They eat the whole, internal organs, the gut, everything, the bones, everything else. So they're taking in massive. If the sardines do contain cesium and strontium, cesium in the muscle, strontium in the bone, the larger fish and sea mammals are taking just massive amounts. Because, they have to consume
deadly doses.
They have high metabolic rates.
Of course.
Yeah, they have high metabolic rates.
Yeah.
Have to take in fantastic amounts of fish to keep going. So basically, radiation is the obvious cause. I mean, you can't blame something like an El Nino, which is not there.
The El Nino is not there. It's not there. You can't blame it. If the El Nino was there, we'd be seeing what we call the Pineapple Express, the subtropical moisture train up from the islands and thereabout. We're not seeing that. We're seeing a normal procession of Pacific storms, which are being blocked. I've been sending you pictures. and I'll put them up. Satellites don't lie.
Yeah.
These storms run into a wall. We're going to go through the break.
This is a major story developing, and I think it has to do with major changes in weather patterns and attempts to artificially prevent, these weather patterns from bringing in the worst from Fukushima.
The United States federal government has done nothing to inform or alert the public to a potential. They can underplay it as much as they want. They're not saying anything. And we know, and I know, that they're testing the water, they're testing the air, they're testing the rain, the soil, they're testing the animals, the fish, they're testing everything. They're not stupid. They know exactly what's going on, and they're not going to tell us under any circumstances unless it serves their purposes, which I can't imagine it doing at this point.
NOAA is supposed to watch over the environment, weather
Right.
in the broadest sense of the term, meteorology and broadest protect us, but it's dead silent on the strange activities, not just happening now, as you have pointed out, for the past more than a month, inside the mid-Pacific area, but also now in the Atlantic. Very similar wall, sort of a invisible wall being built there, and which has caused the polar vortex. There's two walls, one a standing wave in the Pacific and another giant standing wave, electromagnetic wave in the Atlantic. And as a result, the Arctic, the jet stream and the Arctic low pressure right now has got nowhere to go. These are two high pressure zones in between the low pressure zones building up, and it's going downward. It's going into the American states in the Midwest, and that's what's accounting for the record freezing cold temperatures now across the middle of the United States and in the East Coast. It's sort of very, severe winds, wind chill factors, and severely cold temperatures.
I will be putting up a series of Northern Pacific satellite pictures after the program tonight with a nightly news batch. You'll see it tonight and tomorrow. And you just look at the pictures. They speak for themselves. Watch what happens. A high-pressure system is a round, circulating, clockwise, high-pressure ridge, a blocking ridge of air. Now, how can you see right-angled turns on a circular air mass? You can't. Now, I've got a number of satellite pictures which show perfect 90-degree turns at the boundaries of this high-pressure system, which argues for artificiality immediately. And there's another one with a 45-degree turn. You'll see the pictures. I've had red lines added. So you make up your own minds. Is this an accident of nature that all of a sudden, November and December and into January, no storm systems have gotten through? I don't think so. You take a look and make up your own mind. Now, the other story is... go ahead, Yoshi.
Yeah, I think the science behind these, what you call 90-degree turns, does make sense because, the particles of moisture there are ionized. They're ionized in the jet stream and in the Arctic. We got to remember that in the years after Fukushima, the first and second year after Fukushima, the ozone layer over the Arctic was completely burned off to where it was microscopic before, really, in terms of planetary terms. But then it became larger than the Antarctic ozone hole. And as a result, not only Fukushima radiation, but cosmic rays. We've seen these huge aurora borealis, northern lights. Remember that we discussed, just unprecedented going southward because there's no ozone in the upper atmosphere. So what's happening, the atmosphere over the Arctic region, the Arctic Circle, is massively ionized, and you've got Fukushima, radioactive particles, splitting apart water molecules, but also all the other radiation from the cosmic radiation, the solar radiation coming down